What's up, everybody? It's HomiesOfMars back in today with another video. And today we're going to be doing a RotF video, or ROTF, or Revenge of the Fallen. And I will be discussing skill trees in regards to evasion, and we're also going to look at an evasion build that's already been pre-created from this Discord. There's a Discord that I can show you guys. It's this one right here. It's ROTF Builds and Help, and it's actually a pretty sick Discord. I think it's pretty awesome. I'm going to leave a link to it for you guys in the description. Along with it, you also will have a link to this website right here, which will allow you to build your own skill trees and add the runes added in as well. There are some limitations. You don't actually have any of the stats from the actual characters at this current time. So you only get told what your bonuses and negatives are and your bonuses and drawbacks on the runes. So you're going to have to do some extra math if you're trying to get specific amounts of speed or defense or whatever. We can see what our bonuses will be and all that. So it's a very useful build. I'll have both of the links to the Discord and the skill tree editor in the description. But today we're going to be discussing evasion, and also I will be kind of going over this build and giving my thoughts on it, and I'm actually going to have some ways to make it a little bit better, because skill trees have a lot to be, it's very open-ended, and there's a lot of things that you can improve, and I think some of these points can be better well spent. I'm not hating on the person that made this skill tree. I think they did a good job. In fact, they did a really good job, but I think there's going to be a few things that can be done better. But this is one part of the game that I've really gotten interested in and really like min-maxing. Min-maxing, which is getting a very small improvement, but it's basically maximizing what you can get out of the skill tree. Because sometimes there's I'll tell you already, there's a few points on here that you can take off and put in different places and it'd make it a little bit better. But first, let's describe what evasion is. Evasion is a stat that allows you to not take damage. Or basically, the shot misses you and goes right through you and can hit somebody behind you. It is possible to have 75% evasion, which means you take 75% less shots, or 3 out of the 4 shots that come at you, you have a chance of missing. This is a chance thing. This isn't guaranteed, but 75% of the time, it's going to be pretty often that you're not going to get hit. This is why you might see people in the game, if you play it, that can just sit on top of bosses, and you're like, is this dude hacking or something? No, they just have a lot of evasion, and it is possible to be, it's really wild. It's a very wild stat. But how evasion works specifically in regards to getting the stat up, you get evasion from, of course, the skill tree. So first, you want to go Infiltrator, which starts you off with 25 evasion, and also you have little nodes in here that have the evasion point. So some of them are just straight up 1, 2 evasion. Some will give you percentages of evasion, which is all really useful. And this tree has all of the evasion nodes, as it seems, to be selected, which is good. That's what you want to do when you're doing an evasion build. And we can see over here on the right, it has 45 evasion. Now, it is possible, and actually you're going to get more evasion out of this build, because speed also gives you evasion. So here's a simple thing that I made for you guys to kind of lay everything out. For some reason, the base evasion is 5, of course, and the skill tree technically gives you 40 evasion plus an 8% increase whenever you get all the evasion points. The Infiltrator mark itself is 20. Well, it says 25, but it's really 20. And then the skill tree will say that you get 45 in the end, but for some reason, it factors in the 5 base evasion whenever you click the Infiltrator thing. I'm not sure why, because whenever you select Infiltrator, it gives you 25 evasion, is what it says, and then the skill tree holds 20 nodes worth of evasion, and then the increase of 8% with the nodes as well. But for some reason, whenever you go and check your evasion, it's going to show you that you have 55 evasion in the current build that I'm be selecting, even though it says the skill tree gives me 45, plus the 6 that I get from the speed that I have, and the 8% increase, which puts me to 55, but for some reason the base evasion is just not in there. I'm assuming it factors into the skill tree. I'm not sure if this is a bug or what, but this is what I've found. I'm trying not to make that confusing or anything, but speed gives you evasion, like I mentioned earlier. So when you get to 60 speed, you get 6 evasion, but anything under 60 speed gives you no evasion boost. But once you get 10 speed over every 60 speed, or once you get every 10 speed you get over 60 speed, you get 1 more evasion point. So you can see in my example, 70 speed gives you 7 evasion, 80 speed gives you 8 evasion, etc., etc. Being speedy itself also gives you 10 evasion. In this build, it's not going to do anything because we can't be debuffed or buffed at all. But if you have a build like a ninja, ninjas are also pretty crazy for doing evasion builds, and that's when you can start to get to the 75 cap that is put on evasion. You can't get anything higher than 75, but it's going to be difficult to get to 75 in the first place with a lot of characters. Again, remember this, evasion is set to 0 when you're slowed or you have 165 defense. That's something to be very, very cognizant about. There's some evasion builds that don't run Blissful Ignorance, so it is possible to be affected by slows on certain builds. But on this current priest build that we're doing, you're not going to have to worry about being slowed because we have Blissful Ignorance on, and we're not going to have anything over 65 defense on this priest anyways. So that is kind of evasion wrapped up in a good little package there. Again, not sure why, but the skill tree will show you that you're getting 45 evasion, but it just ignores the fact that you have 5 evasion base. I guess I could show you a little clip here. As you can see, I have 55 evasion whenever I do /check evasion, and then when I go to the skill tree, it says I'm getting 45 plus 8%, and of course I factor in the 6 speed that I have, so that's going to be 6 evasion. So I don't know what happened to the 5 base. Maybe it's just factored into this tree somehow when you select Infiltrator. It's weird. Maybe it's a bug, maybe not. But that's the way it is right now. So first of all, we're going to look over the runes. We're using Mana Hunger, which allows you to basically get mana back every time you hit a boss or event. This doesn't work on just every monster. Like if you just go out in the lowlands, you can't just do this. As long as you see like a little percentage damage on the top of the screen, or you just know you're doing a boss or event monster, you get 1.5% of your mana back. And you also get 10% of your mana back when you kill the enemy. But your mana regeneration is negative 95% and you lose 12 dexterity. But this is very useful, and I'll explain more why in a moment. Bulwark of the Surgeon, it gives you 250% bonus HP, 8% vitality. You do lose wisdom, speed, dexterity, attack, and the enemies will always target you. But this is very, very important for this build. Dreadstone Screed, you can actually go between Restoration Temptation or Dreadstone Screed. In my opinion, this build is basically you're not going to do any damage with this build. This build is meant to just straight up tank things and not do any damage whatsoever. So having Dreadstone Screed actually allows you to get loot. If you didn't, you probably wouldn't get really loot ever. This just allows you to actually get stuff while you're helping out your friends. Blissful Ignorance, again, arguably also extremely, extremely important for this build. It means you can't get debuffed at all. The drawbacks is that you can't get buffed either. And you lose 6% to all stats. But it doesn't really matter in this case because those 6% is actually taking away from the visible stats. That actually doesn't take away from evasion or anything. Alright, so now that we discussed the runes, let's go over the items real quick. Pretty simple. So you're going to need to have a wand full of mana. Like that's kind of pretty much a base requirement for this build. You need to have it because it gives 5 shots. So what that means is that whenever you're using the Mana Hunger rune, which I think is what it's called, yeah, Mana Hunger, you get 1.5% each time you hit a boss, and that's per shot. So if you have 5 shots all at once that hit a boss, that's 7.5% of your maximum mana back. This is how it's possible to actually just perma heal and sit on bosses, which is kind of the point of this build. Again, you're not supposed to do any damage, but as you can tell, it does barely any damage anyways. It's 25 to 50 damage, and that's per shot. It's terrible. Usually, some enemies you might be hitting like 3s or 4s. The big thing though is that it has 145% rate of fire, which is actually extremely useful because our dexterity is going to be destroyed by the build I'm about to show you. And the tome, as far as tomes, you know, I kind of run between these two right now just because I don't have enough money to get Otar's Enchantment or Ortar's Enchantment, which is another tome that actually gives you invulnerability and it paralyzes the enemy at the expense of some stat losses. But that's also a really good tome for doing like galaxies or keeping enemies in place while you're actually attacking them with your wand full of mana. And as far as robes, you know, you can't really go wrong with even just the T15 robe. I like the Incombustible robe because it gives you 125 maximum MP, and the Wisdom boost is nice, although the Wisdom on the robe of the Ancient Intellect is still 9, so that's not bad. And you still get 75 mana from the Tier 15 robe. I think you'd be fine with the T15 robe, mainly because it even gives you more defense and more attack on the T15 robe. It's just, this robe is a little bit nicer if you're really wanting to get more mana, which again, that's the main goal for me. And the ring, as far as rings go, I usually just go run a health ring. You can get like an XHP or UVHP. You could even go for a ring that gives you defense and health. As long as it's giving you some sort of defense, health, even maximum MP is fine. I'd prioritize health though, health and defense. That's going to be your main part, and you don't really need anything that has any damage. Dexterity maybe, that's fine. But other than that, that's pretty much it on the build. It's pretty simple. Alright, so we're going to be looking at the skill tree now, and I'm going to do my take on it. And I think I can make this skill tree a little bit better. That's already pre-given to you in the website itself. This build, I believe, is from Jojo, so I'm assuming he's the one that made it, so we'll give him the credit for it. Again, not hating on his build. I think it's a good skill tree. We're going to make it a little bit better, just a tiny bit better. I've already ran it. I'm actually running, what I'm about to show you guys is the current build that I run, and I think it seems to work pretty well. And again, this isn't like a crazy difference. It's not like it's a night and day difference, but it's the small things that I think could matter, and min-maxing is kind of a fun thing for me to do. I'll give you guys reasons why I do things and why I think, see a little down, yeah, why I think his build could be improved a little bit. And the first thing I would say is the attack that we have on here. So we have 2 nodes that are attack, and arguably completely useless almost. This build is about getting as much rate of fire as possible, dexterity, that's fine, but we don't need attack because we're not doing damage. This build is literally just tanking shit and sitting on stuff. That's all it is. We're gonna get rid of the attack. That's already 2 nodes for us. Again, we want to keep this wisdom, not because we want the mana regen, because you know it's already destroyed with mana hunger, but it's because we want to have the heal on our tome maxed out as much as possible. We're gonna keep most of this wisdom in here, and the vitality though, the vitality is a questionable thing. We may not even need this vitality because we're already perma healing, and that's the point. And we do have some bonuses on vitality anyways. I'm not really worried about this vitality, and I'm even saying we can sacrifice this 1 wisdom and 1 vitality here to make things a little bit better. So what would I do? Well, first of all, let's add this 1 rate of fire here. I'm just gonna keep it, and you know, we'll just have a little extra rate of fire. That's fine. We have 77 out of 82 points left, and there's 2% speed right here. 2% speed plus 4% defense and another 1 defense. I think this is a really good pickup right here compared to the other points that we were putting in. We're getting a 4% defense boost and a 2% speed boost, and of course an extra defense. That's actually really useful. I would say we should probably stick with that. I will say that probably we of course need to keep the speed, very much so need to keep the speed. But you can push a little bit more defense out of this. With this 1 defense node, we can actually exchange this for a 2 defense or a 2% defense node to lower our negative defense percentages, which actually would work out in our favor. The 1 defense might actually be worth more, but I'm trying to get rid of the negative defense stat that we currently have on us. We also have it from Blissful Ignorance as well, so getting the 2% defense is going to be pretty useful, and we can get the other 2 defense over here pretty easily. Also, I will say that getting down this speed right here, again, it's not going to give us another point in which we get more evasion, but speed is nice, along with having this 5% or this 5 HP right here. And I'm actually going to do it at the cost of this 1 rate of fire. I think the speed is nice to have. Even a very small amount is very nice to have. I think it's a little bit more valuable than rate of fire, even though we are relying a lot on rate of fire, which might sound odd, but that's the way I'm feeling. It's the way I'm feeling right now. Also, we have this 2% HP over here, which pretty nice. I'm gonna keep these 3% manas right here. I'm gonna remove this 10 mana right here. 3% mana, actually, you get more from the 3% in this current setup than the 10 mana. That's why I'm not gonna get rid of these. But I'll throw in the 2% HP on there, because I think 2% HP is worth more than the 10 mana, especially with how much HP we have. Definitely worth going over for that one. In fact, you know what? Let's actually move this over here. Let's take off this 2% and go to 3% instead. That actually might work out better in our favor. And as far as this 5 defense here, I think 5 defense is worth more than 3 vitality. In order to get this, we're going to actually have to put this here, move that, boom. So we're going to remove that 3% vitality in exchange for 5% defense. Personally, I think that's worth it. I think that's more of a better trade there. And I think that would be, again, we're focused on defense. And we already have a we're trying to perma heal here. We don't really need that much vitality at all. Let's see here. We could take this 1% rate of fire off and put this the 2% rate of fire right here. So instead of wasting 2 nodes for 2%, we only use 1 node for 2% rate of fire. Pretty solid. As far as everything else goes, not much else that can really be changed that much, in my opinion. Now, right here, we have this 1% loot. I would probably want to not really use the 1% loot, but we really don't have a choice here. We just kind of have to. Using this 3% HP is nice. We have to use this 10. We have to use the 10 HP. I'd say it's better than the 1% loot, anyways. So we're gonna stick with it. You could technically use this 2% rate of fire somewhere else if you wanted to. Like, hey, you might say, well, I'll take off the 2% rate of fire and put 2 defense on instead, or go for the 1% HP. I think the 2% rate of fire, that gives us a total of 3% at the end of this build. Should work well enough. I think that's fine. And we can even remove this 1% loot here because we've connected it now with the 2% rate of fire. That's why I said earlier I don't really care about the 1% loot. And we can even put it in this 2% rate of fire or 2 defense. I'd say it's good either way. I will say that defense and rate of fire are going to be pretty close contenders in this build, but I will say HP is very important, wisdom is pretty important, speed is also extremely important over the rest, and of course evasion, you can't make any sacrifices for evasion. You have to get as much evasion as possible. From what I'm seeing here, I think this is a pretty solid build, maybe slightly overhauled for the better. Yeah, I think exchange this 1% loot for this 2% rate of fire down here is a good idea. This 2% rate of fire is a nice pickup, and so now we have 5% rate of fire. I'm trying to see if there's really anything else. I don't think so. I mean, maybe if you want to get a 2 defense node down here in exchange for the 2% rate of fire, that's definitely a possible idea. We could remove this 1 defense actually and put this 2 defense there. Yeah, I didn't even see that. We could technically put 3% HP instead of 3 MP, mainly because, again, I think we have a lot of mana. Our mana pool is pretty large anyways, and I think the HP is, you know, if it helps you stay alive longer, that's what I'd say go for. I'm still kind of debating about some things, like maybe I should exchange these 2% defense maybe for like actual raw defense. It's pretty hard to choose between these two because even 1 defense is still pretty good, you know, compared to like a 2% defense boost, but also we're removing the negative defense on our build as well. And maybe, hey, what if we put 1 defense and put this into the 1 dexterity instead? But then again, I'm not feeling it. I think I'd rather keep the defense. You know, we don't have that much rate of fire, but maybe it's better to have just straight up dex. So I think I'll keep it in this 2% or this 2 dex right here over this 1% rate of fire. And I think that might be concluding my build. But I think this would be a good overall build for the Bulwark Priest. I think we got a slightly better improvement. And so if we want to, I can actually pull up the original one. All right, so now we have the 2 builds. So the one on the left is the one that we started with. The one on the right is mine. On mine, we've lost 1 wisdom, 1 more dex, and then we have 1%, or actually two extra dexterity, and then of course we kept the 1% dexterity. We've lost a little bit more vitality. I'm not too really worried about the vitality as much. We lost the same amount of attack. We gained 1 defense, and we actually recovered. We went from negative 15 defense to negative 2% defense, which is actually pretty big. We gained an extra speed. We gained 2% extra speed as well over his build. We have the same evasion, of course, that's the max you can get. We lost 1% loot, not too worried about it. We've gained 5 HP, and then we went from negative 5 HP to just a bonus 1% HP. We lost 10 mana, but not too worried about it. And then we lost 3% on mana as well. Again, not too worried about it. And then we have 4% rate of fire compared to 2% rate of fire. Not crazy changes, but I'm willing to argue I was able to make his build just a tiny bit better for min-maxing. The biggest ones to me that come out to me is the defense. We actually gained a lot of defense back, along with getting some extra HP. So I think this will actually be a pretty worthwhile build to go with. So what I'll do is I'll put a link in the description for my build for this Bulwark Priest, and also have all the other links, of course, to the Discord and to the tool I use to make it. I think that's pretty much it, guys. So if you have any questions, leave it in the comments below. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button again for these ROTF videos. And I will see you all in the next one.